Hello, this is Carissa Dorada with Premium Mortgage Corporation, and today I have a special guest with me. I have Dan Gastle Jr., and he is the Chief Appraisal Officer over at IREM Solutions. And today we are going to be tackling all the questions you typically ask me, but we're going to go straight to the experts. Dan, I'm so excited that you're able to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Do you mind if I dive right in with one of the biggest questions I see from consumers?
Sure.
All right. So the big question is, what is the difference between a home inspection and an appraisal?
The point of the appraisal is to determine what the value of your home is. Now, when we do an inspection, a lot of people like to equate us as similar in what we're looking for and what we're supposed to catch in terms of inspection. So the difference is this: the appraiser comes in, he's determining the opinion of market value for your house, and he is looking for defects or anything that is available to see above the surface. While a home inspector, he will go into the cavities, the attic, and look at the more minute details of the house in and of itself to determine if anything is wrong with that. The appraiser is not doing that.
Okay, beautiful. That makes sense. And then the next question I have is the difference between the loans that we have and how that equates to the appraisal. So the big one is the government loans, the Sunny Mays, and the conventionals. How do those appraisals differ from your perspective?
Well, opinion of market value is an opinion of market value. So that holds true with all types of appraisals, regardless of it's conventional FHA or Sunny May.
Okay.
Conventional are the most easy to do because they don't require repairs that maybe FHA does, which would be chipped and peeling paint that would be in a home built prior to 1978. GFCI outlets, handrails around porches, to and from steps, depending on certain heights. But what would apply to all three would be health and safety items.
Okay.
Health and safety items are something that can't be skirted in any type of appraisal. So an example would be with asbestos covered pipe wrapping, whether or not it's become friable and it's breaking down. Federal Pacific electric breakers, these are known fire hazards. Those are some of the samples that would be required of all three. Something that would be required of Sunny May, again, that's health and safety, and then pictures of interiors of outbuildings. FHA, that gets more into GFCI outlets, handrails around porches, more health and safety, chipped and peeling paint from prior to 1978, roof shingles, whether or not they're peeling and curling, and what their expected life is. But health and safety, again, would apply to all. So the differences are minimal, but FHA would be the most stringent in terms of guidelines for repairs.
Gotcha. When you say FHA, would we also be able to apply that to your VAs and your USDAs? Are you considering them all in the same bucket for that?
VA and USDA and FHA all are on the same line. Any government insured loan would have the same rules in terms of health and safety and what their guidelines are in terms of chipped and peeling paint and handrails and things of that nature.
Perfect. And you actually just kind of touched on what I think might be your answer to my next question is, what is the most commonly called out items on an appraisal that need to be addressed?
Health and safety items. If there's something that can cause or injure a person, those are going to be called out pretty much on all types of appraisals. That's really what the appraiser is looking at. GFCI outlets in kitchens, bathrooms near water sources and basements, such as laundry areas, sump pumps. When you're looking at handrails, you're looking at steps that might have 3 or 4 steps down that don't have a handrail, or a porch or deck that may be elevated a couple of feet off the ground that may require handrails around the outside so that nobody falls off of it.
Okay, and that makes sense. Could you walk us through the reinspection process? So let's say somebody gets called on a handrail, the handrail is completed, then what happens from your end?
Well, the handrail gets completed. The lender will let us know that the repair items requested in the appraisal have been done. The appraiser will come back out, take a couple pictures of the repairs, submit what's called a 1004D form back to the lender, and then it's all done.
Beautiful. Okay. And then what happens if we are purchasing a house for, let's say, 200 and the appraisal comes back low and at like 193? What do we do if something comes in low? How does that typically handled?
Well, there's a couple ways it can be handled. First off, there's what's called a reconsideration of value. So if the real estate agent's in disagreement or the homeowner's in disagreement with the outcome of the appraisal, they're more than welcome to dispute any of the facts within the appraisal, including any of the finishes, improvements that were listed by the appraiser, all the way up to and includes supplying of additional comparable sales that the homeowner or real estate agent may deem more similar to the subject property than the appraiser used. The appraiser is then provided with those listed differences, analyzes them within the report, and determines whether or not the report alteration is warranted based on what's been submitted.
Okay, and that makes sense. Would you be able to touch on, as far as any other properties to be considered in the comps, how close they need to be? Does it matter if we're buying something in a rural area that came in low versus something in a more city area? Is that expanded out for the comps?
Sure. Well, there's general guidelines in terms of what's to be expected in distances on comparable sales. Urban sales, they like to see under a mile. Suburban sales, they like to see between 0 and 5 miles, and rural sales up to 10. Now, those are merely guidelines. They are not rules. The appraiser has the ability to exceed all of those, but has to justify the reason as to why they would do so.
Okay, that makes sense. Perfect. Thank you. My next question is in regards to rental income. So let's say we have a multifamily home. We're trying to figure out the rental income. I know this is coming up on the appraisal. How do you guys tackle that situation from your end?
Well, rental income is determined in a similar manner that the opinion of value in the appraisal is determined. This is done by locating comparable sales that are, again, in locationally proximate, similar market areas that have reported rental amounts, with adjustments then being derived with their rental amounts versus what the subject and comparable rental features are. And that's how you determine market rent. That market rent is then taken in income approaches derived what's called through a gross rent multiplier, which is the division of the rental amount by the sale price of the rental comp.
Okay, and then what happens if, let's say we have somebody coming in with rent, the fair market rent we think is a little bit lower, but let's say we can get our hands on a lease agreement from somebody close by with a very similar rent. Would that be in consideration as well?
Absolutely be in consideration. Not everything is available to the appraiser through the public records, so the supplemental information that can be provided and verified from outside sources is more than welcome. Again, there's always a variation. What I would always indicate to somebody is that this appraisal in overall is an opinion of value. It is not a standard. So there's always a degree of error within any appraisal report.
Perfect, makes sense. All right, so next question is a rehabilitation loan, a rehab loan, or FHA 203Ks, or a Sunny May Remodel New Yorks. How does that get incorporated into what you do?
So the way that is done is similar to as-is appraisal. As-is just meaning is how your house stands today. When you have a 203K rehabilitation loan, the appraiser's job is to look at the future outcome of what's being done to the property and determining valuation. I guess the best way to talk about this is if we had new construction or we're just sitting at land, the appraiser is provided with plans and specifications for that house. The appraiser's job is to determine the value of that land with the plans and specs that were supplied and now include it all into one to determine a value for the property. So if you had a standard house and a house was having a kitchen remodel, the job of the appraiser is to determine how much value that kitchen remodel would bring to the opinion of value.
Perfect, that makes sense. And you actually covered my new build question as well. Any other comments that you wanted to add to the new build or to the rehab?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. One of the things that we always offer is we're always available for questions, whether it be from an agent, a buyer, a seller, any information they might need in terms of an appraisal or the part of the process. Don't hesitate to reach out to us and ask questions. That's what we're here to do, is to provide customer service and explain how the process goes.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate you answering all of my questions. Is there any common questions that you received that I haven't tackled yet, or any last words of advice you might be able to throw out there?
One of the things that's always asked to me is when we go to the property as to whether or not we already know what the value is and can report that to the consumer. And I would indicate we don't have an idea yet when we go to your house. We're not that smart. So what we have to do is we take a look at your house in an unbiased fashion. And then when we leave the house after the inspection, we'll come back, and that's where value starts to get determined. So when an appraiser is done with your inspection of your house, they don't know what the opinion of value is yet.
Gotcha. No, that's good advice and good information. Perfect. Well, I appreciate your time today. You tackled all of my common questions. And so once again, out there, if you do have any questions about appraisals, comments, concerns, or that, feel free to reach out to me directly. And if anything, I can pass those along to Dan for you. And once again, Carissa Dorada with Premium Mortgage Corporation. And I appreciate you tuning in. Have a great day.